Good morning. Such is the nature of life that all it asks and all it wants is the opportunity to appear. You are that opportunity, and so am I, and so it is. Welcome, everyone, to CSL Midtown, coming to you this morning from Atlanta, Georgia. We are so glad that you have joined us today. We welcome all people. No matter who you are or where you are in your life, we welcome you here to listen to this online, either live now or on our recording. Our center really does reflect the huge diversity of life that is everywhere present. So we welcome you, whoever you are and whatever path brought you here today. Know that you are in the right place and that this is the right time for you. We know that you are an individual expression of the divine life in which we all live, and you are welcome to participate here today and to become actually a part of this community. We hope that those of you who are watching our broadcast on social media will like and share this with your friends. And so with that, for a better understanding of who we are and what we teach, listen now to our Declaration of Principles as written by our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes.
A few of the Declaration of Principles we live by.
I believe in one God, one absolute power, and first cause to all things.
I believe that this power is perfect love, and it creates out of a desire to express love.
I believe all thought is creative, and how I choose to think creates my personal experience.
I believe in the unity of all life, and the immortality of the individual soul forever unfolding.
I believe in the eternal goodness, the eternal loving kindness, and the eternal givingness of God to all.
And so it is.
So grateful. Hey. All right. The full Declaration of Principles by Ernest Holmes is available on our website, cslmidtown.org. My name is Judy Ailey, and I am the moderator and practitioner for today's service. This is the last Sunday in April, and we are wrapping up the month in which the theme has been fertilizing our future. Today's theme is embracing the power of regeneration. When I think about today's theme, I think about the idea of continuous growth and renewal in our lives. We can always reinvent ourselves. We think we have come to a pinnacle. Everything's great, yet there's always something greater, some new area of growth to embrace, some new idea. And today we're going to be talking about sustainable personal development practices and how we weave these into our lives. I'm sure you can imagine what these sustainable practices would be. Things like meditation, reading materials or books that are inspiring, maybe spending time in nature, using positive affirmation, physical exercise even, and time for rest and self-care, perhaps writing in your journal, just to name a few. Sometimes I think we live in a martyr culture where the person who works the hardest or does the most, they get the accolades. But really, how smart is that? We all need time to rest and rejuvenate ourselves, or regenerate ourselves, as our theme points to this week. Some of the pressures of society may have us creating an unsustainable lifestyle, a lifestyle of constant work, activity, distractions, and so much more. A lifestyle where we don't take care of our physical, emotional, and spiritual health. So I invite you today to look at your life. Look at the things in your life that distract you from the self-care and regenerative activities that you might know and have a sense that you would like to engage in, but you just don't. Perhaps you're distracted by doom scrolling on your phone, spending excessive amounts of time on the internet or social media. Maybe it's binge watching TV shows or YouTube videos or whatever it is, shopping. There are many distractions in the world. Perhaps it's reading, about politics right now. Give yourself a break from these, even if it's just for a few hours, and say, from 10 o'clock to noon today, I'm not going to do all that stuff. And instead, I'm going to engage in some things that are affirming and regenerative for my soul. And it reminds me of a quote from the Bible that says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that's what I'm talking about today. So with that, I'm going to lead us in a spiritual mind treatment. It will be followed by music for reflection. So if you'll just take a few moments and allow yourself to become comfortable wherever you are physically in the world right now, whether you're seated or lying down, resting, but listening. And I just ask you to take a couple of nice, slow, deep breaths and allow yourself and your mind to become fully present right here and right now, and to tune into this present moment, tune into yourself and tune into your truth. And as we do this, accept these words for yourself as I give this treatment. I know that, and I recognize that this spirit, that this presence, this God is all that there is, that this power and presence is everywhere. It is within me. It is within all the supposedly inanimate objects that are around my world. It is in nature. It is in other people. It is everywhere present. There is no place where this presence is not. And this is a power for good. This is a presence and power that is wise beyond wisdom, that is love, that is peace, that is generosity, that is deep inner knowing, that is abundant, opulent goodness of every kind, including financial well-being and loving relationships. And that this power and this presence is all of these things in our world and in our lives. So I just know that I am, and that each person here listening is one with this power. There is no place that God is not, so that we know that God is in us, around us, through us. We are immersed in it. And we just allow ourselves to surrender to this power, to allow this goodness, to allow this love, this intelligence to flow through our lives in every way. And as we do this, I know that we live lives that reflect the desires of our hearts, that we live in a field that reflects back to us that which we desire. So today we plant seeds of love, we plant seeds of goodness. We know that we live in a world of infinite possibilities, so we just open ourselves up to this. We know that what has gone in the past, what has happened in the past, good, bad, or otherwise, is not the truth of where we are now. It is not the truth of what we can experience in our lives. So we turn away from any idea of lack and limitation, fear, worry, shame, feeling not good enough. We turn away from all that and instead know that we live in a world of infinite possibilities, that life can evolve and change for us and transform in ways that are absolutely perfect and fit each one of us perfectly. So I know healing on the physical plane and physical bodies. I know healing of relationships, opportunities, healing of financial difficulties. I know that all of this is possibility and the truth. This power is a power for good, and we just simply allow it to flow. We surrender to it. We open our hearts and our minds to it. As we are here together to hear a beautiful message today, that I know that it touches our hearts and our minds in ways that are absolutely just perfect for each of us individually and as collectively as part of CSL Midtown. So I'm grateful for this. I release this treatment now. I absolutely know that it is so. I release it now with great thanksgiving, and so it is. I am pleased to introduce our speaker. And today we welcome to our center Nerissa Street. Nerissa is a licensed teacher and practitioner with Unity and the Universal Foundation for Better Living. She is a teacher and storyteller who's been featured on PBS and TED Talks. She has advanced training from the Center for Mind-Body Medicine. Thank you for being with us today and welcome to CSL Midtown. So excited to have you. Welcome, Nerissa Street. You're on mute.
Hi, I just want to make a small correction. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good morning. So thank you for the introduction, but I do want to make a small correction. I am not with Unity.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Living. I am not sure where that came from, but I want to clear they're beautiful organizations, but I want to make sure that the folks who have been through that licensing process are honored and acknowledged.
Okay. Well, thank you. Sorry. Thank you for the correction. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. I respect those organizations and want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay, great. All right.
Thank you. So thank you, Judy, and for this wonderful and inspiring meditation and opening. And I really also want to thank the Center for Spiritual Living, Meyer Fuller, and all of the staff involved in this broadcast. You all have welcomed me with open arms. So it's a gift to have an audience like you who is dedicated to learning spiritual principles and living in alignment with God. So I don't take this invitation for granted. In that spirit, I want to take the time to care for you directly. So wherever you are, if it is safe for you to do so, I'd like you to stand up and stretch, right? And so I'll demonstrate that for you. So I want you to take your hands and I want you to stretch them as far as you can over your head, right? As far as you can. Now, I want you to take a deep breath and stretch a little bit farther. I'm asking you to do that because your body is a partner in your spiritual practice. Not only are we releasing energy in preparation for something new, but I'm going to stretch you a little in my talk. And when I touch on something where you feel a little bit tender, I want you to take a deep breath and just give it some space. All right? Thank you. So, to begin, when was the last time your prayers weren't answered? When I first agreed to do this presentation, I selected a date that I thought would allow me the time to delve deeply into this topic. Your yearly theme, Rising Higher, Growing Deeper, reminds me of trees and their roots, and nature is my favorite thing. I imagined analogies of a garden and bird sounds, compelling visuals. The topic of regenerativity inspired me to explore cycles of hibernation and seeds being dropped in the soil with the anticipation of spring. So, this topic, what is regenerativity? In your reading, it says, regenerativity is a profound spiritual principle that emphasizes the continuous cycle of renewal and growth. It calls us to see that every ending is a new beginning. transforming challenges and obstacles into opportunities for personal development. Right? Juicy. And then life happened in some difficult ways. I had a full crisis of faith, and nothing in my life felt the same. Everything truly important was made abundantly clear to me. And I began to realize how powerless I felt to impact the things I really cared about. So I went back to my roots in New Thought Christianity. Spiritual principle and the laws taught by Jesus, Ernest Holmes, H. Emily Cady, Johnny Coleman, and others should have had the answers for me. I went back to my thinking and my feeling, and I tried to wrestle my mind into submission because clearly things had gotten out of hand. Reducing trauma and pain to a mishandled principle is another human way of trying to control the ineffable and all-powerful, which has ways we don't understand. As we grow in spiritual maturity, we start to see that, as James Baldwin says, you think your pain and heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, and then you read. It was books that taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who are alive or who have ever been alive. But why? Aren't spiritual principles supposed to make our lives different? It doesn't stop pain from happening. What it does give us is a roadmap to get through the pain when it comes. And that there is the key to accessing the power of renewal and regenerativity, and ultimately our resilience for the time to come. Regenerativity is the cycle of action, rest, growth, and renewal that is only accessible to each of us when we trust in the God of our being. But you cannot access and participate in the law of regenerativity if you cannot trust. Trust is the foundation of any rest, and you must rest to be renewed for growth. You ought to find out if you're a hollowed out tree. Going back to the yearly theme, rising higher and growing deeper, I told you that it inspired me to think about nature. In her book, I Want to Trust You, But I Don't, Lisa TerKeurst speaks about her own crisis of faith and how it made her come to terms with the superficial ways that she's built a relationship with God. How she used her triumphs to prove to herself that God has a relationship with her, but there was nothing in her spiritual storehouse for when things went left. She compared herself to a hollowed out tree that looked sturdy on the outside, but a small breeze could topple. That tree has no roots and no strong core to absorb all the nutrients. It has no connection to the very thing that would save it. We build this type of house for us when we're in survival. For our survival, we can't take time to assess this relationship and its ups and its downs. The survival mindset has to be continually vigilant. It has to be anticipatory. When you've experienced significant trauma, you learn that trust in things you can't see is set up for betrayal and harm. But to participate in the cycle of life, you have to move past the survival mindset. And that mindset does not want to rest. So it's hard. The survival mindset doesn't like stillness and silence. It doesn't trust. It remains a moving target because to rest is to be vulnerable. And part of the difficulty isn't just mental. There is a biological cost to anything that you do differently, to any change. Your body resists a new way of thinking because creating new neural pathways takes energy. And we need energy to defend ourselves. There's got to be a good reason for me to change and come out of the survival mindset. But moving away from survival and controlling anything and everything means moving towards knowing very little and waiting on God to move forward. And waiting on God seems terrifying. Letting God move you and not your own limited view of God can be scary. But as we mature through these phases of being that Michael Beckwith talks about, we move away from manipulating our world through intentional activation of the laws to witnessing and aligning with God's will. But how do you know what God's will is? When you're in pain, what you trust is what you know about yourself and how you've been designed. You get very clear on what works and what doesn't. You become intimate with yourself. And frankly, everything else, be damned. When you're in pain, you can begin to advocate for yourself. And to survive the pain, you have to put yourself first. Thank God. In order to be receptive to renewal and growth, everything else must stop and you must be first. In getting to know yourself, you can find out where this regenerative power lies. What can you trust? Where have you been resilient? It only takes a little part of you. What is in the micro is reflected in the macro. Remember, Jesus said, if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. So you got to know who and what you are before you can trust and then rest. So, who are you? What are you? Are you a ball or an egg? Let me tell you something. There are times in your life that things are completely out of your control, whether you want it or not. Life has picked you up and you are being thrown against a wall. Are you a ball or are you an egg? When this visual came to me, I was reminded of a slow motion video I saw where a ball was being thrown against a surface. As it hit the surface, it immediately compressed and then expanded. And this, friends, this is the magic. Its own material pushed itself off of the wall and put it in another direction. The ball survived the wall by its own resilience and not by the bending of the wall. The egg, well, have you ever thrown an egg against a wall? The walls of life aren't moving, my friends. But as we understand our own resilience, as in the case of the rubber ball with its tensile strength, we can relax upon impact. Let me tell you something that'll help you free to rest and regenerate today. You may have stopped trusting yourself because in the past, what you needed and wanted wasn't what people around you needed and wanted. If you were a parent, your children came first. At your job, what your boss needed came before what you felt was right for you. All good relationships have sacrifice, right? When you identify as a good person, you may also decide that putting your needs last is good. But eventually your body will tell you differently. You'll find it difficult to trust anything because your inner signals are crossed. And you can't rest when you can't trust. So how do we break this cycle of survival and inner conflict so that we can access the rest and its regenerative healing? We have to separate to listen to ourselves. Then we have to give voice to what we hear, no matter what it is. Remember that ball? You have to look at your past and remember your resilience. You have to remember what is the best part of yourself. And you must back what you remember with principle. You have to speak it out loud to yourself as a reminder. Remember the self-care that Judy was talking about. Most importantly, if you've been through something traumatic, you have to look at the terror in your past as a lesson that doesn't need to be repeated, not as proof that it will happen again. And that, my friends, you need a community for. So that they can remind you who you are. So you need to tell them about the terror and the trauma when you cannot remember the way forward. You need to find the community that can hold you, that recognizes itself in your pain, so that they can remind you of your resilience from what they know for themselves. This is what I mean. A good friend of mine was in a terrible car accident, and it's taken her years to heal. And she told me that there exists online a group for 18-wheeler accident survivors. And there she was able to voice the things that no one else around her could relate to. There she was able to see other stories of resilience, get some tips and some practices so that she could remember her own resilience. You can trust and rest on your own resilience, which is part of your divine design. But we must be intimate with ourselves to find it. The truth is, you are not a hollowed out tree. You are not an egg. But when the wall comes, if you don't have these practices in place, you'll crack and fall instead of bouncing back. So let's look at some roadmaps to give you a visual. We think our lives move forward when they actually move in cycles. And we are up and we are down, right? But see what I'm doing with my hands? We are up and we are down, and we are up and we are down. And if you look at life as you live it, it feels like we're on a wave, bobbing up and down. But if you stand at the God's eye view of your life, you'll see that this up and down that you feel like you're going through is actually a cycle. And you've been spiraling forward. And look at the second roadmap. And this is the trauma roadmap, which is also cyclical. Even in trauma, as you can see, we start out straight. And then at that inflection point, that is the incident, that is the trauma. We dive down into a place of survival. And that's at the end. But as we rise, we can stop one of three places. Number one, we can stop at the place that is below where we started from, and that is survival. And we can be functional in survival, but it's still just survival. Or we can move up and be functional, right? And so you'll see that we're a bit functional and we're in recovery. So maybe we're where we started, maybe a little bit above. But where we really want to be is all the way at the top, thriving. And the only way to get to that is by being in a community and taking care of yourself so that you can get to that point. Closing now with our CSL global theme, Rising Higher, Growing Deeper, I return to the imagery of the tree. As the tree grows, it too goes through cycles called the seasons. I want you to think about the tree's resilience made stronger by its acceptance of all that comes. It rests in its own nature, which grows during the warm months, hardens, and strengthens during the cool months. But I want you to think about this. Can you imagine that sapling's first winter? It must have been shocked. But here's the beautiful design of nature. Even the sapling in the forest, its roots are part of a system of mycelium. And the other trees in the grove can communicate with this tiny little sapling, which has experienced its first winter. It can even be communicated with through these trees, and trees send each other nutrients. Now that it has experienced its first winter, it knows itself enough to figure out what it will need when winter comes again, cycles, right? And it can prepare. Growth isn't always further movement. Sometimes it's just increased strength. We can access the power of regenerativity once we trust ourselves. So in our discussion group after service, I will encourage you to speak a little bit about the thing that stopped you from trusting yourself, or felt even like a betrayal of God, if you feel safe to do so. If you don't feel safe to do so in that space, I'll give you some resources to help you find your resilience. We can't do this alone, and in order for you to access the power of regenerativity, you need to find a place where you can trust again, so you can rest. The last part of acknowledging the cycles of rest and regenerativity that could have been prevented from the trauma is acknowledging that there is some grief. One of the reasons that we cling to the survival mindset is that we've built over the years is that moving towards a mindset of resilience means we have to address our own grief. Your soul longs for a deeper connection with you, and when you start to build that relationship with yourself again, you'll realize how much you've lost and the ways that you've been wrong. But beloved, you were not wrong about what you did. You did the best you could. What you've been wrong about is yourself. How many ways you are supported. How much people love you. How everything rushes in for your benefit. But you do not experience that by yourself. Community is our way forward now, so that we can trust ourselves again and tap into the power of regenerativity. So all the things I've spoken about are Practical techniques to spiritual self-care, getting to know yourself, speaking your pain and your needs out loud, owning your past resilience, taking time to grieve, and finding your right community. Those are all techniques to clear the barriers to trust and your eventual renewal. As you move away from a survival mindset and move towards the maturity that sees growth as a deepened relationship with yourself, spiritual self-care is essential for you to be able to trust and rest and be renewed. It is my hope that you step through this doorway to your regenerative power. Thank you.
Thank you, Nerissa. What a wonderful talk this morning. And we'll see you over on Zoom in just a little bit. So now it's time. I'm going to read our New Minister Sacred Covenant, which is the document that we generated. And so say this with me. You can get a copy for yourself on cslmidtown.org. Just scroll down. There's a PDF download for you for that. There is only one life. This life is God. This life is good. This life is my life now. In knowing that I am one with this life that is God, I therefore know that I am one with all of its blessed expressions, which include the presence of a new minister for my beloved spiritual community. Because I know that the highest purpose of my new minister is to express spirit, I therefore know that my new minister is a revelation of spirit as principle. I further know that my new minister is the fulfillment of that which has been promised by God, for it is written, principle is not bound by precedent. It operates according to law, and it is always available to those who are willing to align themselves with it. As I stand in agreement with my beloved community, I see my new minister before me as inspiring spiritual oneness through wisdom, love, and authenticity. I now intend to experience my new minister in full cooperation and agreement with my community, knowing this truth about myself, for I am inspired to live as love in the expression of principle. I am awakening the wisdom within me by clearly communicating the principles of universal truth. I am a conduit of divine love, wisdom, and healing energy, recognizing the inherent wholeness within all beings. I am offering teachings, classes, and mystical studies grounded in spiritual principles to cultivate inner wisdom, personal transformation, and empowered living. I am extending the love, compassion, and transformative power of spirit into the wider community, fostering connections that heal, uplift, and support individuals in their unique journeys. As I now accept the highest expression of a new minister into my life, I know that they will be revealed in a way that will express spirit and serve the highest and greatest good of all who are touched by their presence. I am grateful God is gracious, and so it is. So that's a thing that we get to take into our consciousness and read every week, every day, if that's your purpose in helping our community grow and attract this new minister. So now it's time for our conscious giving, and you can donate at cslmidtown.org/donate. You can click on the QR code that's on the screen. You can set up a ongoing donation or just do a one-time donation. All of those are ways to help us. Read this with me. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in the divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is. So a few announcements. Next week is the first Sunday in May. That's crazy. It's May already. So in person and online. So we'll do a hybrid service for that one. So it's a potluck. So bring a favorite dish. Join us at the Garden Hills Community Center in Atlanta. And we'll have a great talk by Reverend Susan Zoller. And then we'll have potluck after that. So the Sunday discussion group meets at 10 a.m. before the service every Sunday. They're going through the Science of Mind textbook. the entire book. And you can join that. You don't have to read that week's session necessarily to join in the discussion. And you are welcome to join that. Like I said before, you can download the New Minister Sacred Covenant on the website and join us after this for a discussion with Nerissa. And she brought up some good points, so there should be some good discussion today. So if you will now with me say our affirmation of life. I leave this place now knowing something better than I knew before. I go forth into the world with a heart full of love and a mind full of good sense. I look at the world in a greater way, knowing that I have within me everything I need to create the life I desire. I give thanks for this understanding, and I am grateful for the spirit of life that lives through me. And so it is. Have a great week, everybody.